You're listening to the Leadership Podcast, where we unpack real... Sorry, let me try that again. I always have to do 2 takes.
No worries. I know exactly what you're going through.
Takes me a while to get the brain going, and I know I've had my coffee here. You're listening to the Leadership Podcast, where we unpack real leadership and dig into what's working, what's not, and what it takes to keep growing. I'm your host, Karen Reardon, and today I'm joined by Jodie Villemaire of Principal Leadership Solutions. Jodie, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. Jodie, let's start with your story. Can you take us back a bit and share with us how you got started in what you're doing today?
Absolutely. Well, I am a lifelong public school educator. So I spent a decade in the classroom as a classroom teacher, and then I became an assistant principal, and then I was a principal for elementary and middle school for a number of years. And then my last several years in public ed were working as a director of curriculum for a school district. And so when I retired in 2021, I had been the lucky recipient of some really great coaching and consulting through another company who had been working with our school district for a long time. And I'd worked with them for like 3 years as a principal and then 3 years as a director. And so when it came time for me to retire, of course, you know, we don't really retire in our early 50s. We figure out what is our next big gig going to be? What's our next iteration of our working life going to be? And after spending almost 30 years in public schools, I really wanted to stay connected with education and educators. And so I called up the owner of this company who'd been doing our consulting, and I said, hey, I want to do what you do. And very graciously, they have brought me on board, and I've worked with them, and I still work with them, even though I have my own business. I still work with them. And I don't know if I'm supposed to say their name or whatever, but it's Advanced Learning Partnerships. They're a wonderful organization. They work all over the US and Canada. And so I got to work with them for a number of years. So from 2021 to today, I've been an outside consultant for that company and really got to learn alongside really great consultants and coaches what it looks like to do the entire process. If you were to have a coaching business or a consulting business, especially in the area of educational leadership, I really got to be part of all of the work from discovery calls to building proposals, to working with teams to build implementation plans once the proposals are accepted, through delivery, and then post-delivery and post-delivery reports and all the things. So after doing that for a number of years, I traveled around a lot for them in lots of different states, in Michigan and California and Arizona and Georgia and Florida, all over the place. And I loved doing that, but I thought I really want to work closer to home more often. And I also wanted to do more of the work I was really passionate about, which is principal coaching. And so I'm a coach for school principals, a leadership coach. I also work with people like directors and assistant superintendents and things like that too. But the heart of my work is with campus leaders, because that's where I feel like I spent most of my time as an educational leader myself. And I always felt like it was the hardest job I ever had, but like the best job I ever had. I loved it, right? The principalship was the hardest job I ever loved, I like to say. And so when it came time to consulting, I was like, I was doing all kinds of things for ALP, but I wanted to do more of that work. And so the owner of ALP is an amazing guy. And I was like, hey, I think I want to do a little bit of my own gig too. And he was like, fantastic, whatever we can do to support you. And so I then created my own LLC, which is called Principal Leadership Solutions. And I actually formed that back in 2021 when I started working for them, because I was a 1099 and I wanted to have my own company to run my income through, right? So I formed my company back in 2021, but really about 2.5 years ago, I really started to begin to vision what Principal Leadership Solutions could be. And so I actually invited a couple of really good friends and colleagues that had been experienced principals into that work with me. And so at the outset, we really did a lot of work just trying to vision what the business was going to be about. We did a big kickoff summer institute for principals, and that really kind of launched my own coaching business. And so now I do all kinds of things. I coach principals. I still work with ALP too, so I'm doing some of that. I also, as any retired educator will tell you, we tend to do a lot of different jobs once we're retired, but I'm an outside supervisor for brand new teachers. So I have 17 teachers and 15 schools that I supervise for their alternative certification. So I'm still evaluating teachers and giving them feedback. So I really love to keep that as part of my work, because I think it's really important to stay in touch with what are teachers going through, what are the struggles in schools, what are principals really up against right now in public education, and it's quite a lot. And so being able to do that keeps my hand in the game, if you will. And so anyway, that's what I do now. I run Principal Leadership Solutions. I do a little bit of outside consulting for that other company still, but I really work on a regular basis to build my own business, which includes, I run mastermind groups, and I do individual coaching for principals. And I also recently have built a membership for principals called the Principal Leadership Lab, which is funny that your podcast is called Leadership Lab. Mine's called Principal Leadership Lab. And inside that, there's a community where we connect, but I also develop and post a new resource for principals to use in their work every single week. And so a lot of the work that I've done as a consultant is in design work for schools and districts. And so I kind of put that skill set to work, designing and developing tools for school leaders to use. And so in a nutshell, I know that's really a long explanation about what it is I do, but that's what my business is.
That's a lot. I mean, you sounds like you sort of run the gamut. It's a lot that you've covered. Mm-hmm. Out of everything that you've touched on, what are you most passionate about? If you could just sort of spend all your time on one thing, what would that be?
I think if I could spend all my time on one thing, it would be coaching principals. I love the one-on-one coaching relationships that I build, and I love to go to the schools and do learning rounds with them, and then, be a thought partner and ask questions that really get them thinking about their leadership, and then walk beside them as they implement all the ideas that they come up with. Right. So right. As a great coach, the consultant hat can sometimes compete with the coaching hat, right? We have to be careful when we're coaching people that we're not telling them. I think the key to coaching is asking great questions and helping people kind of discover and amplify their own greatness. And so as a coach, I get to do that. I get to ask a lot of hard questions, and then they get to implement, and I walk beside them, and I am a check-in, and I am also accountability partner, right? So it's much harder to come up with an idea and not implement it when you know your coach is going to ask you about it this week,
Right.
And so I love that work. I love helping principals. I like to lighten their load too. So a lot of what I do is I'll meet with a principal and we'll talk through what their biggest challenges are. And I look for those ways in which I can add value for them. So let's say we're having a conversation. I just had a conversation with a principal the other day that I'm coaching, and she shared that she's getting ready to do a data review for her bosses. And part of what they're looking at is chronic absenteeism. And I said, that's interesting. I just built a bunch of new chronic absenteeism resources inside the leadership lab. I want to make sure that I share those with you. And so I was able to share those with her, lighten her load, help her prep for what's coming up. And then I also just listen for ways in which I can add value to the work she's doing so that she's not doing all the heavy lifting alone. And so that's a lot of what I do as a coach too, is I coach in the moment, then I consult in the background between our meetings to try to do things that add value to their work and maybe lighten their load as a leader so they can do more good for their schools.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. I think we need more of you, in the school system, touching the school system, working with the school system. I saw on your site, you have a course, Leading with AI. Is that directed to the principals and to this clientele, this base of your clientele that you are working with? Is that who that's for?
Yes. And I would say AI has probably made the biggest difference in my business out of any of the tools or the things that have come along in the past several years that has really made a difference in the work that I do. It's been being able to use tools like ChatGPT, right? So when it came on the scene, I think in November of 2022, I actually started working with it right away and started looking at it and playing around with it. And then I started following creators and people that shared how to use AI. And I really, through trial and error, became pretty good at it. And so I use it a lot in the work that I do. And then I created a course for campus principals showing them how to utilize tools like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot, whichever one they like, to lighten their load. Right? To do more work faster. They don't need to be inventing and creating every single thing that they do. And so, and that course actually shows them how to use AI in a lot of different use cases, how to plan PD with it, how to take your notes from a teacher observation and turn it into some really great feedback that's tied directly to the learning standards and the teacher standards and all these things that you can do them on your own, but it takes a really long time to make those connections. And so I teach them how to do that to kind of make their load easier. But I actually noticed it a couple of years ago during our summer event that we do. We have something called the Principal Power Up. And that very first time we ever had that, we were doing some strategic planning. Kind of everybody brought a goal and we were going to do a little strategic planning piece. And I showed them how to use ChatGPT to do a brain dump with their team about what they wanted to accomplish in the coming year. And then I helped them build a good prompt to use. And that was only maybe like an hour-long part of our 2-day thing. At the end, people came back with their suggestions and things for the workshop. And we're like, that 1 hour where you showed us how to use AI was worth the price of admission of this whole thing. They're like, the whole thing was great, but that thing you showed me changed my life. I was like, oh, dang. Okay. And that was a couple of years ago. And so I was like, okay, this is where principals are interested and they don't have the time to learn it on their own. I've spent a lot of time over the past several years because the work I do demands it really. And so I had to get good at it. They're so busy running their schools. They don't have the time to get good at tools like that. And so if I can kind of shortcut it for them and show them, this is what you need to know. This is how you prompt. Here's some prompts you can use right away and do some modeling for them. It really helps them.
That's amazing. Imagine your adoption rate must be like through the roof when people see what you've built out and the tools that they can use to help facilitate and just make their day-to-day so much easier.
Yeah, it's good. It could always be better, right? I think that one of my biggest discoveries as a small business owner, right? Going from education where the whole job shows up for you, if you will, you don't create the work, it's already there. When you have your own business, as I'm sure you know, Karen, you're kind of wearing all the hats when you have a small business. And so I had to learn how to market things and how to, it was absolute, that's been, I think, the biggest challenge is learning how to do all my own marketing and what that means. And so the number of books, different books that I've read and podcasts I listen to and all the things I participate in, just to try to learn how to reach people in a way that's meaningful. Because as educators, we don't want to come off as salesy. It feels yucky, right? We're in education, we're trying to give people things that make their lives better. That's what we do. And so the idea of selling something to people doesn't feel good to me. And so, but yet I'm still running a business. I still have to make a living for my family. That's the reality of it. And so to try to communicate to people who I want to serve, but yet also have to pay for my services can be a conundrum. And so trying to find a way to do that that's really authentic, that lets people know that, hey, I'm in this with you, you know, and we'll figure out within your budget how we can make this work, because I think the work I can do with you would be valuable to you because I've been where you are. And that's the most important piece, right? I've walked in their shoes. I know what it's like to do that job. And so anyway, so that's been a big challenge. The marketing piece, learning all that's been crazy.
I can imagine. Yeah. And that's true for any business, right? And especially a smaller business, like you said, where you're wearing all these hats, right? You're the owner. You have to worry about providing the service or delivering the service and the marketing. So in that challenge of learning how to be the marketer and how to get your product out there or your services, what was your biggest takeaway or learning from all of that?
I will tell you, I think the thing that's been the most helpful to me is when I started a few years ago to build up my own business, I was listening to a podcast by Natalie Ekdahl. She does Biz Chicks. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It's a great podcast for women entrepreneurs, basically building small businesses, right? And so I started listening to it, and she sells a mastermind service, which I actually do with principals now. But when I listened to that, I was like, ooh, I need a mastermind of people around me. Well, being an educational consultant, I know a lot of women who have their own small education related businesses. And so I reached out to several of them and we all were kind of listening to, had shared this podcast together. And I was like, what if we had our own mastermind? And we came together as we built our companies to coach each other and help each other. And so we formed a mastermind. We call it the Edge of Biz Mastermind. And so there's 6 of us right now, and we all have an education related small business. We're all over the country. We're all in different states, I think, for the most part. And we come together every other Friday, and we have 90 minutes together, and somebody comes and sits in the hot seat with whatever project they've got going that's hot right now. And then they pitch whatever they need input on. And then the entire group really looks at what they have. We talk about it. We provide them feedback and suggestions, and then they go forward and they implement that. And then every week we also share what are our big wins for the week? What are our big challenges for the week? And then we also usually read a book. We have a book going usually too. So anyway, it's been really powerful having a community around me that are doing the same kinds of work that I'm doing. They know the challenges that I face. We send each other uplifting messages all the time when we have a win. We also support each other in social media, so that when we're posting things in LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and things, we let the group know, and we support each other and we market each other's materials, so that when somebody puts something up, we go in and we comment on it or we repost and stuff. And so we also have that as a community together too, which is really invaluable. So what I suggest to anybody is, if you're starting your own small business, is get a group of people around you who are doing what you do and support each other. Community is so important. And I think it's made all the difference for me.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, especially as a small business owner or a solopreneur, right? It's really important that we do surround ourselves with a supporting network, and you seem to have found that in building your mastermind. I think, so would you consider that to be like one of your biggest wins or proudest moments, or is there something else that would supersede that?
Gosh, it's hard to pick one, right?
Okay.
I think that when I see somebody I'm coaching doing really well and doing great work, and being recognized for it, or really seeing outcomes for students improve, and really seeing their teachers and their building thriving and the culture of their schools really improving, and I get to work alongside that principal, I think that's my biggest win. And so I have a principal recently, we went to ASCD, which is a big curriculum conference. It was in San Antonio this year, and I'm in Texas, in case I didn't say. I'm in Texas, and so it was in San Antonio, and we got to go and showcase her work. And so we were chosen to present at ASCD, and we really got to talk about the journey we've walked together as principal and coach, but then also the wonderful work that she's doing, and showcasing that so that other school leaders can be inspired by that work. And so I think for me, every time I have a positive impact on somebody that I'm coaching and get to walk alongside them and experience the success they're having at their schools, like that's my biggest win. And then next week it'll be somebody different with their school, and that'll be my biggest win. So, it's hard to just pick one, but I think every time I do a little something that I think helps improve schools and makes a principal's job easier, that's a win for me.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, really, what you're doing is just amazing work. I want to go back to something you said a little earlier. You said, you're growing your business, and I'm just wondering, when you think about growth rate now, does that feel like clear, or does it still feel kind of messy?
In education, a lot of what we do is dependent on funding, right? So when you have a business that's tied to something like public education, and something like the federal government holds up funding, right? So some of that professional learning development, which is called Title II funding, was held up by the federal government for a while this year. And so when that happens, spending stops inside school districts, right? So right now, I would say Texas school districts are really struggling. A lot of them are operating in the red. They've got decreasing, public schools everywhere in the United States have decreasing attendance since the pandemic. And so with, most of the money schools get is based on student attendance, right? So when our numbers are waning, then the money they have to spend is waning. And so I would say that right now, school districts are really playing their cards close to their vest. And so even when they are paying for coaching, which is not cheap necessarily, a lot of times they're doing it in much smaller packages. And so I would say schools have less to spend. I think the work that we do can be seen as a luxury for them. I would say the principals that I work with don't see it that way. They see it as crucial work that allows them to continue getting better and better at what they do. But if they haven't experienced the power of having coaches for their principals, then they may not be willing to spend that money right now because things are pretty tight.
So how do you keep growing with these external constraints that are put on your clients, not necessarily you, the people you serve? How do you approach that from a business aspect?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what doesn't work, right?
Sure.
I mean, I think what doesn't work is cold outreach, right? Like I have an email list, you can buy the email list for the school principals for the entire nation, right? It's like 80,000 principals are on that. And I actually have that list, but I will tell you cold email outreach and that kind of thing doesn't really work very well. If you want to get a coaching contract with somebody, you really have to know people. You have to lean into your network of people that know and trust you already, and get personal recommendations for the work that you do. And I think because coaching is so personal, that if you don't know somebody or they don't know somebody who knows you, it's really hard to just walk into a situation and sell somebody your services, right? And so, for example, I just had a principal that I coach in Houston reach out to me to say, hey, I was talking to the middle school principal of the feeder school for my high school, and he was asking me about the work that we're doing. And I told him all about you and how important our work together was. And I think he's going to reach out to you. And I was like, fantastic. So I will tell you, I get more work through referrals like that from people that I know than I do through anything like cold outreach. Now, sometimes something catches fire on social media and you get a lot of contacts and things based on that, right? Like I normally don't think things like lead magnets work very well, right? But every once in a while you create something that captures people's imagination at just the right time. Excuse me, I'm going to grab a drink real quick. And right at the beginning of the school year this year, I made a toolkit for supporting new teachers. And it's basically 5 pages of all these different resources to support new teachers, so that as principals are going through teacher training throughout the year to support brand new teachers, they've got these tools that they can use. And I posted it in these principal Facebook groups. And for some reason, everybody wanted that this year. And so I got thousands of warm emails from the fact that people wanted that thing that I created and I was giving it away. And so, but sometimes I create something and put it out there and crickets. So, you just never know what's going to work. Sometimes a lead magnet works because it has value. First of all, if you're going to create a lead magnet, it has to be worth something to someone. Nobody wants just another checklist. They want something they can actually put in play that's going to lighten their load. They want a real tool that maybe normally you could actually charge money for. You have to be giving something away of value. And if you've created something of value and you release it at the right time to the right audience, right? You have to know your niche. And I think that's super important. I think people cast a really broad net, but they have to identify, what they do and who they do it for and why.
Right. Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think once you've done that and then you can create something of value, then I think you can get some traction on a few things. So for whatever reason, I got some really warm response this year from that. And I've actually been able to create some business and some relationships just because people downloaded something and liked something that I had created that I gave away. And then I was able to open a conversation with them that led to a couple of different coaching contracts. So anyway, that can work. It doesn't work all the time. I think that relationships work. Relationship marketing with people that know the work that you do and trust you. There's nothing that beats that.
No, I agree. If you had a magic wand, what is one thing, and you could fix one thing in your business right now, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. That's a really hard question. Wow. For me, I think it would just be the inconsistency. Right? The inconsistency of work that comes in, because as a small business owner, especially in my line of work where I have my own company and then I also do consulting work for another company. And then I also have this third thing where I'm evaluating teachers. Sometimes when my own work is inconsistent, I'll fill the gap with other work. Right. And then all of a sudden my business will pick up and I'll be like, now I've done it. Right. Now I've got, my calls and then I've got tons of calls and I'm going to California for this big thing for this other company. And I've got my teachers that I'm evaluating and I have new coaching clients and I'm like, whoops, darn it. That's going to be, it's going to be a rough couple of months. I'm going to be working a lot. My husband's like, isn't the point of retiring and having your own business like to work part-time? I was like, guess not.
Sounds like a little bit of a feast or famine type of cycle. That's
exactly
on.
Right. It's a feast. There you go. That's a great way to put that, Karen, is it's a feast or famine cycle. If there's one thing I could fix, it'd be that. But I think it's just the nature of the business that I'm in too.
Gotcha. As we wrap up, let's take a look ahead. What's next for you and your business, and what's lighting you up right now?
Yeah. Well, I want to continue to build the coaching arm of my business, but I also really want my membership to take off, right? So I've created this really great membership, and I'm developing a few different pieces for it for the coming year. And so my Principal Leadership Lab membership, which I launched and have about a dozen members right now. I've only had it launched for a couple of weeks now. And I've created weekly resources that are in there, but I have several things I'm going to add to it, like live coaching and a course that I'm creating on instructional leadership. So it's going to have all these different components that aren't all built out yet, but I'm hoping to launch that full force in January. And so it'll have a new pricing structure and it'll have new elements to it. Right now, I have members that just like the resources that I'm providing, but I really want the community in there to become vibrant. And so I would say I would love to be able to create a community of people online that come together as principals and first of all, in the group, tell us what you need, right? So in the Leadership Lab library, we want to create resources for work that you want to do. So you're part of the group. I want you to be telling me, like, what would you love to see next month? You know, if I'm going to be creating resources, maybe for professional learning communities, what would you like to see? What do you need? And so I would love the principals who participate who will tell me what it is that they need so it can be a really responsive group. But I think I'm really excited about that. I really want to build that part of my business out because we're hoping to move to Colorado in the next year or so. We have a daughter who will be graduating high school. And so by the time she graduates high school, we're planning a move from Texas to Colorado. And so I would love to be able to run a business that I can do from anywhere. And so I'm really hoping to launch my Principal Leadership Lab membership and get principals on board and really participating. I think it'll be great.
Sounds like it'll be amazing community once you have everything built out, not only just a learning platform and resources, but like you said, a community where there's a sharing of ideas and feedback and back and forth. That's very aspirational, and it sounds like you're well under your own way.
Now, if I can quit taking all these other jobs that fill up my time, I go, because I told my husband the other day, I was like, yes, I've started building out these pieces for my membership, but all of a sudden I'm swamped with consulting work and I'm like, oh no, what have I done? Like now because I have a January launch date for that set in my mind. And so I think I'm going to be working a lot of weekends. So we'll see.
You're in the feasting period right now.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
It's all good.
It was slow. The school year started slow. And I was like, in August and September, I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to create some work. Things are pretty slow. And then I was like, whoa, okay. All right. Well, careful what you ask for.
That's right. Jodie, thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey with us. I know people will have a lot to take away from this. Where can our listeners connect with you online?
Awesome. Well, I have a website, right? So it's www.principallead.com, like a principal, like a school. There's 2 L's in the middle. People get mixed up with that, but principallead.com. They can find me there. And I'm Jodie at principallead.com. So they can email me. They can go to the website. There's ways to get in contact. So I'd love them to reach out. Would love for them to join the Leadership Lab. So there'll be some links on the website to track down the lab too. It's in the early stages, but the resources in there are really rich and great so far. There's already, I think, 10 different really great resources around school leadership that they can access right away. So even though I haven't built out the entire thing, there's some nuggets in there that I think are totally worth the price of admission. And the price is going up in January. So if they want to get in right now, while it's cheap, they should do that.
That's great. Thank you so much. We'll link that in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me on the Leadership Lab. It was so great listening to your story and You have so much energy and vibrancy about you. I really enjoyed today's conversation. Thank you so much
Thank you,
again.
Karen. How fun. I appreciate you inviting me, and it was really fun to tell my story. Sometimes I forget about all the things happening in my world until somebody asks me about it. So appreciate it. Thank you.
We sometimes get our focus right down, right? And sometimes we need to take a pause and, like you said, share these stories, share our journeys, and then you get these realizations of how much you've done and how far you've come.
Yeah, I'd also like to put out an invitation, like if there's anybody out there with an education-based business, if you are a woman and you have an education-based business that you're trying to grow and you might be interested in joining our mastermind group, it's free. It's just a group of women that comes together every other week to support each other's businesses. We have spaces in there, and we're always looking for new people to come in and share what they're doing, and we'll share what we're doing, and it's a great community. So if you're starting your own small business out there and you don't know where to start, or you've started and you're doing great and you'd love to share what you're doing and be part of a community of women doing that, then reach out to me for that too.
Perfect. And that's on your website as well?
That's not, but they could just email me from my website.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. Thanks again.
You bet. Thanks, Karen. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you for spending your time with me today on the Leadership Lab podcast. My hope is that this conversation sparked a new perspective or reinforced something you already knew. Until next time, keep leading with curiosity and intention.